So let's get right down to business. First of all, it looks like Facebook will now be paying for your voice recordings, so you can get paid every time Facebook uses one of your voice recordings. And yeah, what do you expect? It's the world that we live in. Of course, a lot of these different companies, whether we're talking about Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Google, Microsoft, are going to be spying on their customers, and it does suck in the world that we live in that your privacy is breached, and there's really nothing you can do about it unless like you want to stay off the internet. But who really can stay off the internet, because the internet is a powerful tool, but it just sucks every day that you use the internet. Most likely in some form or fashion your privacy is going to be breached. Now of course, they always do claim, like Facebook, Amazon, and all these different companies do actually claim that, of course, they are going to be using your voice recordings for good. It does help improve their services, but honestly, you should still be worried because you never really know what these companies are actually doing behind the scenes, and you don't know what type of person is actually behind the computer that can actually do a lot of malicious things with your personal information, whether it's voice recordings, whether it's your personal data, and things like that. And this is something to actually be worried about it. But at least, even though they are taking your voice recordings and actually using them to improve their services, at least now you can actually get paid for it, which is actually very nice news that you can get paid for it. Now, don't get your hopes and dreams up, because you're not going to be getting paid a lot for your voice recordings for Facebook. You are going to be having to go through this application called the Viewpoints app, and you will have to earn at least 1,000 points, and 1,000 points will only equivalent to $5 US. And you can see that's just not a lot of money, so don't bank on this service as a way to try to get rich fast or try to make a lot of money, because it's just not going to happen. But I guess Facebook is really trying to make sure that more people, I guess, are more comfortable with giving them voice recordings, because they're hoping by doing this you're willing to give them voice recordings, since now that you're going to be getting paid for it. But of course, they're going to be taking your voice recordings regardless of you actually wanting to get money for it or not. That's just the sad truth and the sad reality that we actually live in, that companies are willing to actually take your personal data, whether it's for good or whether it's for bad. And even if they use your voice recordings for good, there's always that one person at the company you may not even be able to trust, and in some scenarios they may still be stealing your personal voice recordings, and it does suck. And I wouldn't blame people for actually being scared and being paranoid to buy things like the Amazon Echo devices or the Google Homes of the world, or now I think Apple made one 3 or 4 years ago, the Apple HomePod. You should actually be scared, because it does suck in the world that we live in that a lot of companies are taking your personal voice recordings and actually using them. And it doesn't really matter also that the fact that you may not have one of those personal assistants, whether it's the Echo, whether it's the Google Home, the Apple HomePod. It just honestly does not matter, because what do you have in your pocket all the time? A lot of people do have a smartphone on them at all times, and since you have a smartphone on you at all time, most likely those microphones are actually picking up conversations that you're actually doing each and every day. So that is kind of unfortunate, but I guess that's just a sad truth, and the sad reality that we actually live in a world like this. But it is interesting that Facebook, of all companies, is actually allowing their users to actually get paid for their voice recordings. Again, you have been warned. They're probably taking your voice recordings whether you like it or not. So maybe this isn't a bad idea. Also, if you just want to make a couple of bucks here or there for your voice recordings, you can earn up to $5 US. And I don't know how often you can earn up to $5 US, but it is going to be very interesting. Of course, there is some conditions to this whole setup. Of course, you do have to be over the age of 18. You do have to have more than 75 Facebook friends. So it is a specific group of people that they don't just want anybody to actually be able to benefit from getting money off of their voice recordings. You do have to go through all these different steps. You can read them right here. But yeah, that is actually something to actually look at and actually listen and actually pay attention to, because it is kind of a scary world that we actually live in. Now, the next article on the list is actually talking about Google, and it's more specifically talking about the Google Play Store. The Google Play Store is actually banning a whole bunch of apps that actually have obnoxious ads. So basically a lot of applications that have really bad apps. And yeah, I'm not really too surprised about this because Google is actually a company that every once in a while they always go through the Google Play Store and actually eliminate a lot of different applications on the store that are not like following their rules or misleading customers or maybe have malware and things like that. They do try to clean up the Google Play Store from time to time, but what I can honestly actually say when it comes to like the Apple App Store versus the Google Play Store, I can always say that the Google Play Store was always a store. If you compare it to the Apple App Store on iOS, it was always a much more worse store just because Google never really kept track of what goes on to the Google Play Store. Unlike Apple, Apple always regulates and looks at every developer who actually publishes a lot of applications on the App Store. It's not like their App Store doesn't have any malicious or any bad applications, because there'll always be these applications that somehow leak through or get hacked through to the store, and there's always a chance that that can even happen on Apple. But at least when it comes to their App Store, they were always a company that actually paid attention to their store. I think they had restrictions in place as well, where, for instance, you actually had to go through Apple to get your app certified if you wanted to get it on the App Store, whereas Google, pretty much anything goes. Their platform is a little bit less secure. They don't really care too much what goes on that store. That's also why on the App Store or on the Google Play Store compared to the Apple App Store, you always get these applications that pretty much allow you to do a lot of different things on Android. For instance, maybe you got a lot of customization apps. Maybe you got applications to allow you to play game emulators, download movies, download music and things like that. So you can see their store is just a little bit less secure, and they don't really care what goes on there. Again, they do sweeps from time to time, which is actually very nice that they do sweeps from time to time to really make sure that their store is a little bit cleaned up. And it is nice they are trying to get rid of a lot of applications that do have obnoxious ads. It does say right here in this article, a lot of people have actually downloaded these applications that actually have obnoxious ads attached to them. So it's not like they're applications that nobody uses. They're applications that somebody uses, but they're not anything too crazy, and they're not anything really too major. So you don't have to worry about like your favorite application most likely going away, because most likely you probably don't have one of these apps installed, or maybe you do have one of these apps installed. Like I said, there was a lot of people who downloaded these applications throughout time. But it is very nice, I guess, that Google is trying to crack down on a lot of different applications in the Google Play Store. But like I said, Google in general just really doesn't care or really monitors what goes on the Google Play Store. But I've always seen this throughout the years. Every once in a while, Google will do a sweep on like malicious applications, things that just don't fit their criteria. So it is nice they are trying to clean up the Google Play Store, because there is a lot of Android smartphones out there, and a lot of times a lot of these Android smartphones or a lot of these apps on the Google Play Store have a lot of malicious stuff, whether it's malware, whether it's viruses, whether it's stuff trying to steal your personal data, whether it's stuff like this that has really bad ads that just keep pestering you, that are just nasty ads that should not be on the Google Play Store for reasons, and they're just junk apps. So props to Google, I guess, for trying to monitor their store and doing another sweep for the Google Play Store. Now, the next one on the list is going to be Cyberpunk 2077, and we have some pretty interesting news about Cyberpunk 2077. Now, this game is supposed to be coming out right around the corner, so it's coming out a couple of months prior to me recording this video. And the interesting thing that we just got confirmation about Cyberpunk 2077 is the fact that it's going to be coming to the consoles on day one. It's pretty much going to be coming to everything on day one. But the nice thing is, right now, it is confirmed when this game launches, you will be able to get this game specifically on GeForce Now. And I actually wanted to talk about this because I actually think this is actually a very good move in the right direction towards this streaming future that so many people think that's going to be the future of gaming. And I personally agree as well. I really do think that streaming is going to be the future of video games, and it is nice to see a company like NVIDIA actually want to try to get Cyberpunk 2077 on day one. Now, I've used I've used NVIDIA GeForce Now, and what I can say is it is a pretty phenomenal service, and I'm surprised how well it actually worked. When I actually used GeForce Now like a couple weeks ago, I was honestly blown away. It really did feel like when I was using that service, it felt like I was actually playing the game natively on like a PC or a console. Of course, it's still not going to be the same quality as you playing it on like a dedicated piece of hardware, but just the fact it ran as amazing as it did for me personally, I was pretty happy with my experience. And this is also the right move for NVIDIA because they are in competition with things like I think xCloud from Microsoft. They also have the Google Stadia, and of course, a lot of people have mixed feelings on Google Stadia, and a lot of people actually do like NVIDIA's GeForce Now service, and GeForce Now service is actually a pretty amazing service, not just in the way it runs, but actually in the way it functions. The main reason is the fact that you actually get to own the games long run, and the nice thing about NVIDIA GeForce Now is you basically just buy your games like you would buy them on a storefront on the PC, whether it's Steam, Epic Games, Origin, GOG, whatever the case may be, and then you pretty much just stream them through the internet. And the nice thing about this service is you don't need any PC on in the background. You can have your PC off if you're not playing it on your gaming PC, if you're running it like through a smartphone, or if you're running it through things like a tablet, and then you can actually play the game through their service, and it is a nice service. The only problem now is this service is actually a paid service, to be honest. So if you're thinking about getting NVIDIA GeForce Now, you really do need to pay for the service. They do have a free tier for this service, but there is one big limitation. The one big limitation, which pretty much is going to force you to pay for the service if you haven't, if you're going to be using the service long term, is the fact that they limit your play sessions to 1 hour play sessions. And let's be honest, these games are so big nowadays. You can't tell me you can live off the free tier for GeForce Now, because if you were to live off the free tier for GeForce Now, you wouldn't be able to do it if this is like your primary way you're going to be playing your games. But it's not bad, I guess, they give you a free option for this service. But either way, this is actually I think a good step in the right direction for GeForce Now, just because, well, they're competing with a couple of different services that are streaming video games. Even though Xbox Games Pass is kind of slightly a different thing, they still are competing with that service as well, because it is so similar yet kind of different in the way it actually functions. I don't think you actually stream games through the internet with that service. But yeah, this is actually some very nice news. Cyberpunk is coming on day one, so props to them. They actually really did need this as well, because some other games recently, if you heard the news for this service, has actually been discontinued, and they're actually removing them. I think some of the Call of Duty games you can no longer stream on GeForce Now. Overwatch you can no longer stream on GeForce Now. I wonder who actually did that, because I feel like maybe Google or Microsoft or some other company wanted those games removed from this service, since of course they are competing. But again, that's just a theory, and who really knows if that's actually the case to why some games being removed from NVIDIA GeForce Now. Just something to take in consideration. Now, the next one I actually wanted to talk about is the Smash Pass. You may have heard the news recently about the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Smash Pass. It is confirmed that the second Fighters Pass is going to be the last Fighters Pass that Smash is actually ever going to get in its lifetime. And honestly, I don't think anyone's mad about it. How can you actually be mad about it? Because I honestly don't think anyone expected to have a second pass outside of the first Fighters Pass that Nintendo actually announced, because I think we've had, I want to say, 5 characters now, and that is a lot for DLC, especially when you look at Smash Bros. Ultimate. You look at Smash Bros. Ultimate right now, and Smash Bros. Ultimate, I think, is one of those fighting games that has so many characters. Honestly, this game didn't even need DLC to begin with, but of course, it makes sense from a Nintendo standpoint, because Smash Brothers is like one of the best-selling Nintendo IPs of all time, and on the Switch I think it sold like 16-17 million at this point, so you can see it is racking in that money, and they want to make sure it generates a little bit more revenue outside of just the base game, because they know so many people will be willing to buy DLC for this game. So yeah, I wasn't actually expecting Nintendo to actually add a second Fighters Pass to the game, and I think for most people there's still about 5 or 6 more characters coming. after the first Fighters Pass. So in total, we'll have like, I think with 5 and with 6, we'll have somewhere around 11 or 10 characters added to the game as DLC. And then you take all the base characters that you have in the game, and that's already a lot of content. And then, of course, I do know for a factor, Sakurai, who's the director of Smash Brothers, is one of the hardest working people in the gaming industry. You guys may remember, I think a couple of years ago, Sakurai actually talked about how I think he was making Smash 4. I want to say, and he actually had a syringe, I think, actually in his arm as he was actually working on the game. That shows you how dedicated he is to the actual franchise. So I'm honestly okay if they don't want to go ahead and make another Fighters Pass after Fighters Pass 1 on the Ultimate game, because that is a lot of characters. And I'm actually really blown away, too, that we actually got a second Fighters Pass from Nintendo, because, hey, I never actually thought that was going to happen. And, of course, that is a lot of content to the game, and most likely there has to be at least one fighter's character that you're probably excited for, whether it's in the first Fighters Pass or whether it's going to be in the second Fighters Pass. Most likely you'll have a character that you actually like to play in the game, so it's not really a big downside. But yes, they did confirm that there is going to be no second Fighters Pass in there is going to be no third Fighters Pass in Ultimate. Now the next one is actually just going to be about another a game. It looks like there's another game coming out at the end of, I want to say, oh no, I don't know what date this game is coming out, but there is a game called Pumpkin Jack, and Pumpkin Jack is actually supposed to be a game that's a 3D platformer, and it's supposed to play on the likes of things like Jak and Daxter. And then on top of that, me looking at this game, it looks like a kind of a replica of a game on PS1 called Medieval. And as I was looking at this trailer for Pumpkin Jack, what I can say is for this game, I was saying it looked like Medieval on the PS1, and lo and behold, what happens, before I actually read this article, the guy in this article even thought it looked like Medieval from the PS1 if you ever played that game. And overall, I wanted to talk about this game because I think this game is actually a very interesting game, because I am a person that still likes 3D platformers, and I know 3D platformers are in a really weird state in gaming, just because we don't really get a lot of 3D platformers. The last big one I think I can remember off the top of my head was Yooka-Laylee, but you guys know what happened to Yooka-Laylee. Yooka-Laylee didn't do all too well. It kind of flopped and things like that. It looks like this game is coming out at the end of 2020. It's going to be coming to all major platforms: PC, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch. It's actually funny that it does say the end of 2020. The reason I say it's interesting that it's coming out at the end of 2020 is just due to the fact that the next-gen consoles will be out, but I'm assuming this game has already been in development for quite some time. So, of course, they couldn't actually develop this game for, like, next-gen hardware. If they wanted to develop this game for next-gen hardware, there's really no way, because it's too new, and it makes sense to be coming to all major platforms. Again, I'm looking at this footage right here. I'm going to go ahead and make it full screen for you guys, but here is the footage once again for Pumpkin Jack. I like the name of the actual game, Pumpkin Jack, and then I actually like the art style of this game, and I actually like the combat of this game. Honestly, I'm probably going to be looking at this game when it comes out at the end of 2020, depending on how much this game costs, because this game does look like it's going to be a very good game. Again, keep in mind, too, the graphics of this game. You're looking through my video, you're looking at a video through YouTube, and it probably doesn't look the greatest, just because, well, you're looking at it through a couple of different things. But yeah, so far I actually like the direction of this game, but it doesn't really remind me of Jak and Daxter, even though this article is talking about how it kind of reminds them of Jak and Daxter. This game actually reminds me more of a game called Medieval, like I was talking about before, and that's really what I keep thinking of. But I really do like the art style and the main character of the game, if that's the main character of the game, a guy with like a jack-o'-lantern on his head, I can say that does look actually pretty awesome. And he looks like he's using a lot of melee weapons. He's using like a sword, I think, and then he's using like a shovel, and he's killing skeletons. So yeah, it really just looks like a clone of Medieval. But I'm really excited for this game now that I actually found it, because we don't get too many 3D platformers. The 3D platformers of yesteryears like Banjo, Jak and Daxter, Ratchet and Clank, and things like that are really not really part of the gaming industry anymore. So it is nice. Some companies out there are still trying to keep the 3D platform alive, and I'm really curious to see how this actually plays when this game actually comes out at the end of 2020. The next one on my list is actually going to be the final one on my list for this episode, and I actually wanted to talk about a game coming out in 2021. Yes, I know 2021 is another year away, so it is a very long time from this, of course, but I wanted to talk about this game called 30XX. It is going to be a sequel to a game called 20XX, and you might not be familiar with a game called 20XX. 20XX is basically in the realm of Mega Man X, if you ever played any of the Mega Man X's, but it's not really a clone of Mega Man X. 20XX is a game that's already currently out on the market, and it is actually a roguelike that's in the vein of Mega Man X, and they are actually going to be making a big sequel to this game. I don't know how many units this game actually sold, 20XX, but I'm guessing it either sold enough copies or the company behind this game has enough money to just throw around money to make a sequel to 20XX. But yes, 20XX is a game that is a roguelike, and the reason I wanted to talk about this is because I am a big fan of the roguelike genre in video games. You may not know that. I play games like Enter the Gungeon, Binding of Isaac is pretty cool, Dead Cells is cool, Rogue Legacy is pretty cool. So you can see there's all these different roguelikes that I'm generally interested in. The main reason why I'm so interested in roguelikes is because I love the whole concept of roguelikes. You're supposed to do these different runs. Runs are very short. Every time you play the game, you always get some type of different experience with most roguelikes. The thing about roguelikes in general, they're usually a hard genre. All the roguelikes that I played are very hard. And then on top of that, they do have a lot of replayability. And I think that's what I really do like in my video games in general. I like video games that do have a lot of replayability, and roguelikes really do lend themselves nicely to replayability. Now granted, I actually never played 20XX. I was actually thinking about getting 20XX when this game was on sale, like maybe last year sometime. This game actually went on sale, but I actually never ended up picking up this game, so I may have to check out the sequel to this game called 30XX. And here is the trailer for 30XX. We already got a trailer. Let's go ahead and look at the trailer. Now when it comes to this game, I actually never seen this game, to be honest, so I don't know anything about 30XX. I have seen footage of 20XX, and it really does look like a game that personally I would play, just because I like the whole Mega Man art style. Mega Man X is cool. This game, if you look at this trailer right now on screen, you can see that this game is a fairly fast game. It does have co-op, and it does say the co-op on this game is local and online co-op as well, so that's something that's actually very interesting. It looks like they're going to be implementing co-op, and yeah, overall this game looks like a very fast-paced game, just in the style of the Mega Man X games, if you ever played the Mega Man X games. And of course, it is just going to be an improvement over what the first game had to offer. Of course, 20XX and now 30XX. You might want to try 20XX if this looks good to you, because 20XX is pretty much the same game. Of course, most likely this one is just going to be a better game because it is a sequel, and most likely it'll just improve on the mechanics that 30XX or that 20XX actually had to offer. But just a very interesting game. But it just sucks that the sequel 30XX is going to be coming out sometime in 2021, so it's about another year and some change away. So yeah, don't really be excited for this game, since it is a very long time away when it comes to video games. Anyway, that's pretty much going to wrap up this video. Anyway, guys, this is Wayne from My Tech News, signing out.